Hi, and welcome to Enabling Observability for the Many Teams. It's a little discussion about our open source observability setup and enablement here at Ingka, which is part of IKEA. My name is Timothy Mahoney. I'm a senior systems engineer in the operational intelligence group. I'm part of a team called Observability Enablement. Hey, hello, which is hello in Swedish. So to jump right into it, what we're talking about here is we're talking about enablement work. It's part of team topologies. So our team in Ingka is an enablement team working with observability. So we work alongside streamlined teams, teams that are doing things aligned with the flow of work for each business domain, in particular with regards to observability in our observability platform. We're meant to help teams overcome obstacles in adopting observability practices. So we have a very interesting role. Part of the way teams work in this role is we don't have this long-term interaction with teams. We have very short-term interaction. So it's not like we're embedded in a team for a long period of time to do observability work. We basically do like short-term things. People have specific problems they want to solve or specific needs from the platform, and we help enable them to solve those problems. So observability enablement Ingka, yeah, our main role is to help teams adopt observability practices. We want to make sure that teams have the resources they need to do good observability. It helps us and it helps drive the business. We help explore ways of using existing tooling to solve observability issues. So teams that have specific things they want to monitor or some sort of specific questions about how they might solve a problem in observing things that are happening with their systems or the system as a whole, they come to us. We are basically the subject matter experts for observability within the organization. So we participate in different, what you call them? We call it actions within Ingka when it comes to observability. So when teams have a call to resolve issues with a failure analysis or something like that, they might call in an SME and they'll get a hold of us since we're the SMEs for that. We also provide feedback to the observability platform, which is part of our operational intelligence group. We provide the observability platform. So we provide feedback to the team that runs the observability platform to help them shape their offerings. What's the clear thing here is that enablement isn't support. So we're not doing cases for onboarding or the system isn't working as expected. That's not really our role. Our role is more making sure that what the teams are trying to accomplish, they are able to do so with the tooling that we have. So I try to tie all these together with company values. I think this is a really neat idea. It's some of the things I'll talk about with our engineering baseline tie to the company values, and it's a very good way to explain why we do things the way we do them. Different with meaning is one of the IKEA values, and why we choose to build over buy and use open source for our solutions. It is a little bit like, why couldn't we take from what's out there in the world and adopt that to our needs? It doesn't necessarily mean creating something new. It might mean that we might want to adopt things that exist, or we might want to add something to that and create something that we can share with others as well. So yeah, IKEA is not like other companies. We don't want to be like other companies. We want to question the existing solutions and think in unconventional ways, experiment, dare to make mistakes for good reason. So that's part of the build over buy. In practice, what this means is we have some motivation to choose OpenTelemetry. We, as a team, worked with our observability framework, and we started thinking about open source software, what that meant to our observability ecosystem, and we were very motivated to adopt OpenTelemetry. It gave us that ability to have teams use libraries that were developed independently through the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and adopt them for their software, so they can kind of have a little independence from the tooling. We can pick and choose what underlying tooling we use, and they have something that's kind of widely supported by the community. It also helped us create an abstraction between observability as a platform and the observability tooling. So the teams within the organization, when they say they need observability, they're not asking for a specific tool by name. They're saying that they need that request access to that platform, and then we can sort of curate what tooling is available to them and how it integrates with everything else. So different with meaning, we have to think about this, what we're offering. Is it better or just different? So we need to be very careful what we choose to offer the organization. So yeah, next IKEA value, we'll talk about a few of them here, is renew and improve. So we have an observability framework. I believe I've spoken at this conference about it once before, but it's a really neat idea. We have gathered all of our observability knowledge into one thing, and we have this shared observability platform. So what we're trying to accomplish here is we're trying to convey our observability knowledge to the rest of the organization and then curate the tooling for the teams to use. What we want to accomplish this is basically like make this easier for the users of our systems. So not everyone has to be the observability expert. So when we renew and improve, when it's in relation to this observability framework, what we really want to do is reduce the cognitive loads on teams. So we want to have all of these things sort of figured out for them, how they implement OpenTelemetry, what needs to be done, where that data needs to go, how that needs to look, how they use that to then observe their system and create dashboards and alerts and things around that. We want to make that as like low of a stress on that team as possible. We definitely want to ensure consistency across the organization as well. So if everyone's doing things the same way across the organization, it's much easier for us to correlate events across different systems. We also want to provide an observability journey, paved path for teams so they can understand what it is expected of them to do, how they would get from zero to hero in this. It's a really good thing for them to know and understand. A lot of times they come to us with a single thing that they want to solve, but they need to solve a picture before they can get to that step. The journey helps us kind of put them in the right place to get to that goal that they're looking for. We want to prevent teams from reinventing solutions as well. So if we have decided on using OpenTelemetry, teams aren't coming to us with some other idea that they want to do. They have something that's already been put in place that they can kind of adopt directly. We also want to provide a curated set of tools and examples. We can do examples that are specific for our platforms and our systems and are tailored to meet, the expectations of the people that are working in those environments. So it's really important that from the framework, we can kind of connect them to those examples so they can start working on them directly. We also want to set the stage for an observability data model and introduce the data model for observability data governance in that. We want to have attributes in our observability data that we can then share with teams. So we have this idea of whose data is this, where did it come from, what team owns it, how do we get in contact with the people that are generating this data if we need to, what should this data contain. As far as the platform is concerned, I can't speak for them totally because I don't work in that team, but I do have a good idea what they do. They're providing a managed platform for observability. So they're trying to concentrate all of our efforts to provide a fit for purpose observability system. We want that to be one team that does that and not that have that responsibility spread across the organization for everyone to solve for themselves. They also provide pre-configured integration with other systems. So if we have alerting, if we have any other system authentication that's already been pre-configured, they're maintaining the entire system for people to use. So give and take responsibility, what we're trying to do as well. We're trying to avoid islands of observability. We have this balance between team autonomy. They have this, give and take responsibility. They're allowed to make decisions for themselves. We want them to be different with meaning. We want them to be able to pick and choose the tools that they can use. But we're risking having siloed observability data. So we don't have like a whole picture of the organization. Each team is solving things for themselves, but it doesn't give us that complete picture that the organization might want. Teams at Ingka are given the autonomy to choose their technology stack. So that's super important. We're hoping, or we plan, that the framework will give and the platform give them a paved path to do that work. So they understand what's necessary, but someone else has done all the work for them so that the benefit of them using the observability framework and choosing the platform is that everything's been done for them. It's nothing they have to do for themselves. It's also difficult to motivate the extra engineering effort to maintain separate standards and tooling. So if they decide to go their own way and make their own thing, they have to kind of justify that engineering cost of running their own observability platform or adopting something that none of the rest of the organization is using. And then there's additional responsibilities that these teams need to be aware of when it comes to data compliance, like where are they storing this data? How are they backing this data up? Does it contain PII data? Do they have PCI DSS compliance they have to think about for this data? So definitely a good way to discourage teams from doing something that or taking on something that they thought would be easy, but might be very difficult. So yeah, different with meaning. Back to this one again, but we have luckily a really active open source policy office, which helps us manage our inner and open source efforts. This is really amazing team. They're helping with the engineering directives around licensing and adoption for open source components. They have a third-party risk management framework, so teams can have a really good understanding of using these open source components in anything that they're putting in production. What does that mean from a licensing perspective? What's allowed, what's not allowed? And they are ensuring that we're responsibly using our open source components. So what that means is that, we can work with the OSPO office and decide like which components that we might want to promote and which projects we might want to promote. Part of our enablement work is like trying to gather internal support for projects. So if we want to do a specific instrumentation for something that the company uses, we want to help build those libraries and encourage the community to start contributing to those. And the OSPO office is a very big help with that. They also help recognize the contributors for that. So teams and individual contributors that help with internal inner source projects or open source projects get recognized for their efforts, which I think is very nice. And then our team then has the responsibility of choosing when to deprecate components. So if we have them listed in our framework as something that we're supporting, a way forward we're expecting to use for something and that loses favor within the company, we might choose to deprecate that component as far as our framework is concerned. Renew and improve, enabling maturity and observability practice. It's a non-function requirement for teams to have observability on what they're running. How do we enable teams to practice good observability without making them become observability experts themselves? I mean, ideally, it would be great to have a subject matter expert in observability in every team, but they also have a job to do and something to fulfill, and that may not be observability. So our team and enablement, we spend a lot of time trying to learn from incidents and failure analysis and get involved in those as teams are publishing their postmortems about incidents that happened. We want to be involved in that, start to learn from what they're doing, so we can give back to them. We try to think about when we do our enablement work with teams, since we have this short interaction with these teams, we might want to help them improve in an easy way and start to think about what can they accomplish in a coffee break? What tool can we give them? What action can we tell them to take that might, in a very short amount of time, give them the most benefit? We want to give teams clear steps and guidelines to accomplish their observability needs as well. We want to make sure that they understand that, taking this metric and turning it into SLO will get them where they want to go. Instrumenting with OpenSummary will get them this far. This is what we suggest that they start with. And we also want to create this feedback loop to help guide our team for future work. If teams are coming to us with things they're trying to solve, or if we see from the failure analysis from a system that this is a common issue, a common blind spot, like how can we in enablement make that easier for teams to be able to visualize or alert upon and react to. So yeah, giving and take responsibility. We have the engineering baseline. This is a huge thing as well, really exciting. We have this baseline of engineering practices that's been developed by the engineers within Ingka, and it's kind of created the standard for what teams are expected to do for engineering practices. So we have basically a set of engineering best practices that are run by a group of basically volunteers that have decided this is the things that we need to concentrate on. They're connected directly to our IKEA values, so it's very easy to justify them from a company values perspective. They're connected to DevOps capabilities. So for teams working in DevOps, it's very clear how these interact with each other. They provide education to these teams. They provide references and access to subject matter experts, which can help them with their engineering maturity. Specifically for our team in enablement, the decision records around observability and monitoring and the open source license policy are something that we work with all the time. It's really good with a framework or with a baseline like this that teams have a clear understanding of the observability and open source practices they're expected to adopt. So it's very clear to them what is an accepted or expected practice when it comes to observability. What are they expected to have in place? It also gives them benefits and consequences, so they understand that, like, you need to have observability in place. This is what we're expecting the outcome to be. It's supposed to be that you have a more available system. It's appropriately reliable. You have the tools in place to get alerts when you need them. You have the tools in place to troubleshoot things when they go wrong. We also have a maturity measure, so teams understand that, like, this practice is expected to have this level of maturity. Your team is expected to have service level objectives. Your team is expected to be gathering data and creating actionable alerts. It also gives them guidance to the resources available internally, externally. So workshops and data from, or instructions from different sources is all documented there. So people know that they can reach out to subject matter experts within the organization, and they see what we've put in place as far as like the observability framework and the tooling and platform and stuff that's available to them. So different meaning. There's a balance then between technical value and debt. And as an enablement team, like how do we create useful documents and tools for our many colleagues without drowning in technical debt? This is a constant struggle in our team. So some things we've come across is like we really want to avoid recreating documentation or tooling. In previous team I've worked in, it's been super tempting to write down as much as possible to sound like, okay, this is the most information. If we gather all of it and we regurgitate it to these teams for them to consume, it's going to be good, but it isn't really good. It becomes too much to maintain. There's a lot of documents that are outdated or just we never have the time to look at them. So in enablement, when we create documentation, we want to really avoid recreating documentation or tooling that already exists elsewhere. If we can adopt that from open source to software, or if we can take that from the source, like OpenTelemetry's own documentation, we use that. And then we produce documentation around what's specific to Ingka or IKEA. What's the practice that has to be done there? What technical things or challenges can we explain to someone so they don't have to solve it for themselves, but only in the context of what's specific to us. We also want to keep teams from falling into the do-it-yourself rabbit hole. So if we send them documentation and we explain to them, oh, you should use this documentation to solve this problem or instrument this application, that they don't fall in the rabbit hole of then assuming that they have to install all the tooling themselves or do something silly with it, because that tends to be the problem. The other thing that we're very wary of now is like, how do we keep LLMs from falling into that external documentation rabbit hole as well? So if we end up setting up a chatbot that will help teams solve problems with the observability platform or with instrumenting their application, they might fall into the trap of documentation from a third-party vendor that we don't want them to use, or practices that are outdated. So having this enablement team, we have renew and improve how to do more with less. We're enablement for a large company with a small team, and it is a tough job. We're just a team full of unicorns, basically, that know a lot about a lot of things, observability related, but there isn't someone to put in every team. We have 600 teams, and we don't have that many people in my team. So when it comes to this, a healthy observability community is key. I mean, people are willing to contribute and help and discuss things related to observability. We try to help foster that community through community sessions within Ingka. We do a lot of demos and things with teams to show them how we can solve problems or new things that we've discovered. We create educational videos to be consumed internally so that we don't have to have that direct contact with the team. They might be able to just see a short video of what we were trying to get them to do and do that whenever they see fit. We hold workshops around the engineering baseline, for example, and we'll hold workshops around distributed tracing with teams so they understand how to utilize that. And we have engagement with these teams in our Slack channel with the observability special interest group. So more giving and taking responsibility. So the big part here, I think this is more of our future, is enabling meaningful answers. Hazel Weekly, in her redefinition of observability, said that it was a process through which one develops the ability to ask meaningful questions, get useful answers, and act effectively on what you learn. We see that as an organization, there's a lot of interest in the observability data from a organizational level as well, not just for the teams running the applications. So observability is becoming more important for everything. So in enablement, we see our role as to convey that broader context of observability data to these teams so that they understand that they might want to create dashboards and generate observability data specific to their application to know that it's performant and that's living up to its availability. But it doesn't mean that just because it's available, it's solving the problem for the company. So we want to have them understand that that's company data, that it could show even more information that could be valuable for driving the bottom line for the company. So tooling's now becoming available to have semantic conventions be consistent across their observability data. That's becoming more and more important. We need these attributes to correlate this data across systems. So the more we can correlate, the better idea we have of this whole picture. I've heard it referred to flight tower view. I don't like using that term, but we want this idea of the whole organization. We want to be able to understand like the impact on this service going down might mean as a whole for a business or in a store, or like in all kinds of contexts that aren't specific to like how many packets did this pass, how many requests did it answer. Our first step into that is the data governance attributes that we have in our observability frameworks. We have this data model that we start very simple with, like, this is the environment that your application's running in. This is the team that owns it. This is what part of the organization that belongs to. This is just a baby step into that bigger picture. So final thoughts on open source and working with it. The development of OpenTelemetry has always been one step ahead of what we're doing in maturity. So every time we're starting to face a new challenge, there's always some piece of OpenTelemetry that we're discovering, or some new piece that's coming out that means like quite a bit to us. I know that we started out specifically with logs and moved on to metrics, logs, and traces, and having those data models around that was a really big deal. Having that being consistent was a big deal. But now, as it's getting more and more mature with semantic conventions, that's like even more things we hadn't even thought about that are coming up that there's already an answer for in OpenTelemetry. So that's been really amazing. The open source community sharing of knowledge and experience is super, super beneficial to us. People are so very vocal about the things that they're able to solve, or how they're working with things, or presentations like you see here, or at CNCF, or all these different around the web, even companies presenting their own tools. You see all the things that are going on. People are very vocal about it. It's fantastic for us, especially in trying to enable other teams. And much of the success of what we're able to do rides on the efforts of our platform team and engineering baseline volunteers and the OSCO office. We wouldn't be able to do the things we do in enablement if we didn't have the platform for it to run on, if we didn't have someone solving the licensing, and we didn't have that baseline driving that mandate that these teams are meant to adopt these engineering practices and lead them to us in our enablement work. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you very much for watching.